Politico reported that the European countries are scrambling to find additional Patriot interceptors for Ukraine as Kiev seeks to strengthen its defenses against an expected Russian winter missile campaign. Russia this winter, Larry, I think since the war started, every year we said that the winter gonna be difficult for Ukraine, but this one gonna be so difficult because they only have the drones to fight back.
Right. Yeah.
What else do they have?
This is shaping up to be more challenging. That's for sure.
And if Russia decides to advance in the eastern part of Ukraine, how do you see the Ukrainian forces? Are they gonna? Do they have the forces there?
No, they don't.
Sufficient forces?
Ukraine is shy of manpower, and Russia's ramping up. They're positioning themselves to both retake Odessa and retake Kyiv.
What is today I talked with John Helmer. He believes that he mentioned the reason that I'm saying that many people, the people are thinking differently about the military pact between the three countries in the West Asia. He said that the whole coalition, this new pact is against Russia and Iran. And he mentioned that Russia is getting back.
Whoa. That's nonsense. What's his evidence for that?
I don't know. The case of Russia, he was mentioning the situation in Syria and the competition between Russia and Turkey in Syria. And he even mentioned India. I was confused. I asked John, why do you mention India? What does it have to do with India, the pact between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia and Turkey? India is basically right now with the United States and Israel and UAE.
Well, sort of, because they're also maintaining very good relations with Russia because they need Russia's oil. Yeah, so this alliance, it's not an alliance against Russia and Iran. No, he can. Look, he's welcome to believe it. Can I prove him wrong? No. I have a different opinion. I'll put it that way.
It shows how different is this situation is for everybody, because everybody is sitting back saying, this is against me. That all sides. Israelis, two of the Israeli officials today said that.
But what have the Iranians said?
No, Iranian didn't say.
No, Iran said they welcomed it.
Yeah. Welcome, and not just only
Ghalibaf said he welcomed it.
Exactly.
So at least two key Iranian officials aren't seeing it as a threat to them. And I would give credence to John's assertion if both Turkey and Pakistan had now responded militarily against the Houthis or against the popular militia front. But they haven't, despite attacks and the claim that this agreement requires if Saudis attack, then Pakistan and Turkey are supposed to treat it as an attack on themselves or respond. They haven't responded.
The case of the other point that John raised today was the air defense systems S-400 in Russia, in Turkey. He said maybe under this new pact, they can sell them to Saudi Arabia, which is in an active war with Iran. And
why would Turkey the best itself of air defense systems.
Because they want to buy F-35 from the United States. That's one of the main
Oh, gee.
conditions.
Well, yeah, I think that's nonsense. I think the Turks finally realized buying the F-35 is just buying a piece of junk, an expensive piece of junk.
There is no sign since then. They talk about it in Turkey. Last visit of Donald Trump. Since then, we haven't heard about the S-400 or F-35 being, Donald Trump, or the timeline, the timetable of those fighter jets to be sent to.
Well, in fact, Trump said the deal was dead because Turkey wasn't going to give up the S-400.
No, he said that he's not going to send them to Turkey.
Correct. Yeah, that was like 4 weeks ago. Well, within a week of that visit and that claim, then it got basically shot down.
Larry, do you think that Israel recently, Benjamin Netanyahu said they're going to produce new fighter jets on their own? They're going to produce them without the United States. But
Sure they are. Sure they are. I'm sure. Man, it's going to be, such a magnificent plane. You're going to need some rare earth minerals, though. Where are they going to get those?
But after all, looking at the war in Ukraine and the war in the West Asia, do you think that's going to be a good strategy for the countries to buy fighter jets instead of producing some alternative options, which we know worked in Ukraine, worked in the West Asia? Maybe new drones, new missiles, new air defense systems would be more, applicable to the battlefield.
Yes. No, you're right. That's why it's so silly. Fifth generation fighters, hell, the sixth generation was supposed to come online. They're anachronisms. They're no longer really relevant like they were once because of advanced air defense systems that Russia has, and because of drones and other, it's just for the expense. Like F-35 is $100 million a piece, and they're having to sell them now without the nose radars because they can't get the magnets out of China.
The problem for those countries who are gonna, correct me if I'm mistaken, Larry, when you are on defensive, you have a lot of leverage to defend yourself. But when you go on offensive, you need the fighter jets. Because without the fighter jets, how can you put a lot of missiles, on these aircraft carriers? It's impossible to.
Well, you need the fighter jets, and you also need the missiles, which they don't have.
I'm talking about ballistic missiles. If you decide to go on offensive with ballistic missiles, that's impossible, quite impossible.
Well, ballistic missiles have nothing to do with the aircraft.
I know. That's why I'm asking you that those countries who are defending, Russia is fighting Ukraine on its soil. They don't need to go that far because Ukraine and Russia are so close. And I'm talking about the United States in this ongoing fight with Iran. They're learning something, that if they go against China in Taiwan, so with these fighter jets, they're not going to have any sort of upper hand.
Well, I mean, that's the only way the United States can go at China. Unless they start launching, nuclear missiles.
Yeah.
They'd have to launch, bring in destroyers and try to launch missiles into China, and China will light them. China can light them up with drone swarms that they've never even imagined, coupled with hypersonic missiles, anti-ship cruise missiles. Yeah, no, it's just it's a silly concept.
Let me bring the map of the Arctic, Larry, here, because it seems to me as time goes by, Donald Trump somehow been disappointed with what's going on with the case of West Asia. He's going to move on Greenland. And here you see two routes on close to Russia, and the other route is close to the Canadian border. You see the Greenland here in the middle.
Right.
If we assume that Donald Trump captures Greenland, he wants to dominate the route that passes close to the border of Canada. Is that the plan? Because Greenland doesn't have anything to do with these two routes.
Yeah. And the problem the United States has is to traverse that route, got to have icebreakers. The United States doesn't have icebreakers. They've got they've got a few icebreakers. They're outdated technology. Like, Russia's got nuclear powered icebreakers, or maybe 5. And their icebreakers are still state of the art, even the old ones that are not powered nuclearly. So,
was these icebreakers that Russia has, was that part of the negotiation, the talks in Anchorage, in Alaska?
I don't know. The talks would have been what? Can we use your icebreakers? That would have been maybe the focus of the talks. But because the United States is having trouble building them, even in a timely manner, and they're having to rely upon, I think, the Norwegians to build their icebreakers.
Larry, today, let's assume today they open up the Strait of Hormuz and the country is getting back to their business. How long does it take for the global market to get back to what it was before the war started?
Minimum 6 months, maybe more likely 2 years, 3 years, because there's a lot of damage that was done in Qatar to Roslafen, the liquid natural gas oil field, and the pump, the wells, and how they extract it. And then when they extract it, they also extract helium. The reports I've seen suggest repairing that facility is going to take 2 to 3 years. So
It means that it's going to be Donald Trump going to be gone by that.
yes, yeah, he won't be around. He won't be around to see it. That's for sure.
Yes, maybe he said something about Chuck Schumer. He basically, every time he's talking about Chuck Schumer, he says that he's a Palestinian, he's fighting for Palestinian, he's doing this and that. But on the other hand, in the Democratic Party, you see the people the same way. They don't see, that much from Chuck Schumer. That's why you see the leadership of the Democratic Party. Chuck Schumer is the leadership of the Democratic Party. That's why you see the people are not happy with that. They want to change the leadership of the DNC.
Right.
And these people are, do you see any time, is that going to happen anytime soon? That these people being removed from their position? I'm talking about Chuck Schumer and like the guy whose name just escaped me, the guy who has I forgot his name, who's part of the leadership in Democratic Party.
You mean Hakeem Jeffries?
Hakeem Jeffries, yeah, exactly.
The leader of he's the minority leader in the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
No, they've got some real challenges here. The Democrats are split. The Republicans are split. There's no unity on either side. So it's going to be a big mess come November. The Republicans might be able to hold on if the Democrats put up all these Democrat socialists as candidates, that will be, off-putting to many Americans.
Do you see the possibility that those Democrats, some of these Democrats, going to vote for Republicans instead of avoiding?
Potentially. Or they'll just stay home. Same can happen with Republicans. They'll be so put off with the more rhinos, they'll stay home. So I said it's not a good situation for either party. And if the war's still dragging on, that's not going to give Trump more support, just the opposite.
Donald Trump is in the negotiations with the Cuban, and he wants. I wouldn't be surprised if something happens in Cuba, Larry.
Yeah, it might. And it'll just be one more, you get the United States bogged down in another war. And it'll be a guerrilla war. And then they'll be economically responsible for Cuba. Really create some problems for themselves.
Is that going to be the same way that we've seen with Venezuela, or you feel that
No,
could be different?
it'll be different. I mean, in Venezuela, the CIA had bought off a number of people. The CIA is not going to have that success in Cuba.
Venezuela recognized, the Israeli occupation of. First of all, they say because there was no relationship between Israel and Venezuela. Right now, you see they're improving drastically the relationship between the two sides. Today, we've learned, Benjamin Netanyahu, he said that this is, he's talking about the Colombian government recognizing the Israeli, sovereignty, the Israel's sovereignty over Golan Heights. And he's so happy about the Colombian government recognizing that.
Yeah, Colombia is irrelevant. I mean, it really is. Who cares what they think? They're not a global power. The only thing they're good at is exporting cocaine.
Yeah. Let me just, Larry, thank you so much for being with us today.
All right,
and
my
we're
friend.
gonna see you tomorrow.
5 o'clock?
5 o'clock.
All right.
Exactly.
I'll put you on the schedule. See you then.
Yeah. See you.
Okay.
See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.